Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. Good morning, lovely listeners. It's Dr. Lucy here, and I am so thrilled, and you will be too, because Dr. Mary's back. Yay!
Hello.
Hello, Mary. How are you, gorgeous girl?
I'm good. Happy to be here recording podcasts with you again, my friend.
Well, for our listeners and friends out there, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes at Real Life Medicine. And Mares, I reckon you might like to share with them what's been happening.
Yeah, I might win. I might win the news competition. Yes.
You are. You're winning news of the day. I absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah.
News of the day goes to Dr. Mary Barson. Drum roll.
Winner. I'm having a baby.
Yay!
Yes.
Oh, it's so exciting. So exciting. Well, I don't think I'm anywhere near as excited as you and your partner would be, but I am truly, as I'm sure all of you, truly thrilled.
Yes, it is exciting. Our first little RLM baby. Yeah. I already have one child who is 8.5. It's a big gap between them, and we told her about the baby a couple of weeks ago, and she was just so adorably excited. It was possibly one of the happiest moments of my life. Just she did this kind of kind of a noise. She made me print out a little picture of the ultrasound, and she took it to school and told everyone in her grade about it. And then that night I got lots of phone calls from school mums, many of them ringing me up to congratulate me, but some of them also just ringing up to sort of tell me that my daughter was telling people that I was pregnant, and was that okay? Pretty hilarious. But yes, I am, and yes, it is.
It's so wonderful. New life. Perfect to discuss at Christmas.
Indeed.
So, speaking of Christmas, lovely friends out there, how are you all going? You know, it's really interesting. Christmas time brings up so many emotions for people. And I think, you know, everyone's got the hallmark card image of Christmas is family time and everyone's having a lovely time. And the truth of it is that that's not always the case.
No, indeed. It can be a lot of work and a lot of stress as these events, the work parties, the boozy Christmas do's, the friends barbecues, all of the family obligations, the present buying, all of these things really fill our calendars, and they can also fill our stomachs. And there is almost an expectation that for a lot of people that it's inevitable that you'll gain weight over Christmas. It's inevitable that your healthy lifestyle will be put on pause or maybe even totally derailed. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely not. And it's really interesting. You're right. People do have this expectation that if somehow you're not participating in whatever sugary, crazy Christmas extravaganzas, that you're some kind of wowser or a party pooper. But I can tell you now, you can absolutely enjoy Christmas. You can absolutely still be crazy, and you can still be fun and still stay on your plan if you want to.
You absolutely can, yes. So we're a few days out from Christmas. Lucy, what are we going to, what are we going to advise our beautiful listeners? What kind of things are going to be really helpful to our listeners now as we approach the pointy end of this month? We've got the big celebrations coming up. What would you advise?
Well, I think the first thing is to have a look at your thoughts about Christmas Day. So, as you know, we often say to people, there's no right or wrong. You're the boss of you. You get to decide whatever it is that you want to do. No one can tell you what to do. You're the boss. But sometimes what our brains do is they will think that in advance, like a lot of people, and I used to do this in advance, I might have been on a plan very strict, and in my head I already knew that Christmas was going to be like a day where I just threw it all to the wind and I didn't care, and I was going to eat whatever I wanted, which you can do if you want to. You're the boss. But for me, what it was almost like this just unraveling of everything. And part of it was that in the lead up to Christmas, I spent a lot of time feeling FOMO, so missing out, being strict, feeling deprived. And in my head, I'm going, right, well, Christmas Day, I'm not being deprived. I'm going to eat all the things. And so it would turn into this almighty binge fest, really, that went on. So I guess part of it is having a think about how you want to think about Christmas Day. So for me now, Christmas Day, it is like literally, it's just another day. It's another barbecue or another gathering. It's the same as all the other gatherings I attend throughout the year. It just happens to be called Christmas. But it is no different to every other gathering I attend. And in all those other gatherings, I stay on my plan because it suits me.
I love it.
What about you, Mez? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm much the same. I can certainly remember indulging in Christmas a lot, particularly as a kid. I can remember this one Christmas where I ate so much. I just indulged so much that I actually my stomach was so expanded that I actually had trouble breathing. And I was like 12 or something. And I actually people thought I was having an asthma attack. And
God.
It escalated to the point where I actually ended up getting a chest x-ray. But really, I had just overeaten to an extraordinary degree as a, poorly self-controlled 12-year-old, as I guess many 12-year-olds are. Haven't really, covered myself in that much shame again. I'm pleased to say that was a bit of a one-off. But, it is really possible to overeat at Christmas and to overdo it. Now I tend to stay on plan. I do. I think there are so many delicious low-carb real foods that you could eat. I will probably indulge in artificial sweeteners more than I would normally, and make a few low-carb desserts that have got, stevia or erythritol in them. Is probably the only big difference. And I probably would eat maybe a bit more just because there is more food around. But I do feel like if I wanted to, I really could have a day off plan. I think that would be fine. I don't feel like that's something I can't do. I totally feel that I could choose to do that. It just so happens that I don't, where I am currently with my, healthy lifestyle and what I find works for me. And if you want to have a day off, to whatever extent, if you just want to eat whatever, or if you want to eat a few extra things or drink a few extra things, you need to have a bit of a plan. Sounds kind of dumb, but if you're going to go off plan, you need to have a plan about how you're going to get back on plan. So, Lucy, maybe, would you like to elaborate about having a plan to get back on plan?
Absolutely. So it was interesting. Last year, Christmas was at our house and there was a beautiful low-carb caterer nearby who sadly has moved into the country, so no longer here. So, of course, I am the world's biggest over-caterer. It's that scarcity mentality. I don't know where I've got that from, but the idea of not having enough food for people coming to my house for some reason is a big problem. So, of course, there was about only maybe 15 people, but I ordered enough food for about 45. So they all left, and I was then left with 3 low-carb desserts, giant low-carb trifle, some brownie thing, and a low-carb tiramisu. Now, on the surface, that might be kind of no big deal, but the problem is no one else in my house actually eats it. So the only person that was going to eat those products would have been me, and I don't normally eat that stuff because it doesn't help me. So it's not that I can't or I wish I could. I don't actually wish anymore. I look at it and go, that's really unhelpful for me and the way I like to feel. So last year I actually threw it all out, like about day 2, where I just kept looking at it and thinking, well, the only way it's going to go is if either I eat it or I put it in the bin. And as you know, our body is not the bin. So out it all went. And so this year, the lesson, if you like, or the taking away that I learned is don't over-cater. seriously, I do not need to order or make 4 giant things of dessert for 15 people. It just does not necessary. So this year I will just be doing the one, and maybe I'll do 2 so there's an option, but they'll be small. They won't be massive. So certainly in your plan, make a plan that you have minimal leftovers.
Or if you can't control that, have a plan what you're going to do with the leftovers. Perhaps you've got family members coming over who there's nothing you can do, short of putting them in a straitjacket. You can't stop them from bringing lots and lots and lots of food and leaving it at your house. But just having a plan. Yeah, chuck it out. Your body's not a bin. Give it to the chooks if it's, chook appropriate. You don't have to eat food to get rid of food.
No. It's so funny, isn't it? Our brain does that. It goes, oh God, I've got this stuff in my fridge that's tempting and I don't want it there, so I'll just eat it all to get rid of it. When you spell it out like that, God, I reckon I've done that maybe like 11 billion times, and I spell it out now and I think, what am I thinking?
Gosh, yeah, I've had very rational conversations with myself several years ago where I decided that I should eat all of my daughter's Easter eggs so that she couldn't eat them. She was a toddler at the time. I really could have thrown them out, but it seemed like I'm saving her from this toxic sugar by, eating the toxic sugar.
Eating it on her behalf. And you're not wasting. And if everyone's watching me, which I know you're not because you're out there in listener land, but wasting is with air quotes. We're not wasting the food. But again, remember, are you actually wasting it by scoffing it? Of course we're not.
You're wasting your good health, really, which is far more valuable than the crappy chocolates or even the moderately expensive low-carb desserts.
Yes.
There is another aspect about planning to get back on plan, which I think is really important, that if you have a day off for Christmas or Boxing Day or whatever, you need to understand that you're going to quite possibly reawaken your carbohydrate cravings, your sugar cravings. The next day you might feel a bit crappy, you might be a bit hungover from excess alcohol, but you could also be suffering sort of the effects of eating a large amount of sugar and carbohydrates when your body's not used to it. You could be knocked out of ketosis if you are someone who is in nutritional ketosis. All of these things could sort of make you feel a bit icky, a bit vulnerable. With those carb cravings reawaken, you need to have a plan around what you're going to do after your day off plan. Lucy, what should people do?
Well, we love using the analogy of Fluffy. So for those of you who haven't heard this before, Fluffy is in Harry Potter, in the Chamber of Secrets, there is a giant 3-headed dog, a Cerberus dog, that is asleep. He's this huge, drooling, 3-headed, slightly ugly-looking dog who's guarding the Chamber of Secrets. And when the music is playing, when this little flute is playing, he's sound asleep and he's harmless. But when the music stops, he wakes up and he's ferocious. And I think of my carb cravings as Fluffy. So when my carbs are low, Fluffy's sound asleep and he's harmless. And when depending on, how many carbs I might have had, it might just be one head sniffing around, a bit uncomfortable, but pretty reasonable to put back to sleep. But if it goes on and on, then suddenly there's a 3-headed ferocious carb craving monster in my brain, and it makes it much harder. So what people are often tempted to do after they've gone off their plan is fast. They'll go, right, I've overeaten. I've eaten so much food. I'm not eating. I'm gonna fast. And it's like a punishment for being, naughty, which is, again, not how we like to view food. You don't need to punish yourself. What, in fact, you often need to do is really make sure you focus on your fat and protein for the next couple of days, because by doing that, that puts Fluffy to sleep. Fat and protein puts him to sleep. So he goes back to sleep, and then if you feel like fasting because, you want to give your system a rest, which I quite like doing from time to time, then you do it. Not the following day for being, air quotes, naughty.
No, fasting is not a punishment. It should be an act of nourishment, an act of self-love. Same with exercise. Exercise is like nourishing your body with movement. It's not punishing your body because you ate the Elf chocolates.
Absolutely. And it's not you don't exercise so that you can reward yourself with food. Again, that's just part of old-fashioned diet culture where diet and exercise were all one word, and it was all about if you exercise more, you can eat a Mars bar.
That's right. Yes. Coke has got copyrights on the term exercise is medicine, with the idea that you can drink all the Coke you want as long as you go for a run. It's fine. It's not fine. For many reasons, that's not how our metabolism works.
No. And instead it turns exercise into something that might be really fun into a chore.
Lucy, you mentioned a very interesting word before, which I think we should explore a little bit further. You mentioned FOMO, and that, back in the day when you were, quote, trying to be good, end quote, you felt a lot of FOMO by not eating all of the Christmas sort of treats that were around, and this sense of FOMO would intensify and you would delay, no, I can let loose on Christmas, But by the time Christmas came around, it was an open slather binge fest, which didn't serve you well. Well, FOMO's almost inevitable, I think, at Christmas if you're wanting to, make healthy choices and stay on track with low carb, real food. But it doesn't actually have to be that uncomfortable. What can people do to help process or deal with their fear of missing out?
So I think there's two steps to this. The first step was really that in every other diet I'd ever tried in my entire life, it was always just action-based. It was always using willpower. So the willpower was, you're not eating the scorched almonds because you're on a diet. So there was a lot of that as my belief. And then Christmas Day was a day that you didn't have to be on a diet because it was Christmas, so therefore I could eat whatever I wanted. So what's happened for me and you, Mares, over the last few years is that we've actually changed the way we think about food, our thoughts about food, so that I can eat scorched almonds any time of the year. They're available all year round. I don't want them anymore. They don't serve me. That tiny bit of what I used to think was amazing pleasure that you get from eating something that, I would refer to as delicious, just no longer exists for me. Interestingly, if there is something, so if someone comes up to me and goes, Lucy, you've got to try this food, it's so amazing, you won't be able to help yourself, I immediately go, oh, no, thanks. Because I don't want any food in my life that I can't control. I don't want to be introduced to a substance that I can't regulate. So the idea of FOMO is really about your thoughts about something. So my thoughts were always about restriction. I can't have it. I'm on a diet. The subtext in my head was poor me. It's all right, Lucy, you'll be able to have it Christmas Day was what I was saying, and I would save it all up. But now my thoughts are not that at all. My thoughts are always, I love having Fluffy asleep. I love the idea that, yes, I'm the boss of me. I can have scorched almonds whenever I want. I can have shortbreads whenever I want. I can have Christmas lollies whenever I want, but I don't want them because they wake up Fluffy, and I don't like that.
I love that. You can have whatever you want. You just changed what you want. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And the defining thing was actually it's not about the weight. Before, all of my diets were all about weight loss. And so again, in my head, I can go, oh, well, one day off won't matter. And honestly, it probably doesn't. But it was all about I could just work harder the next day to lose the weight I'd gained was what my brain would say. Don't worry, you can work harder, i.e., restrict the next day and hardly eat anything and go for some, 50K run and run it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and you came up with this term, Luce, and I love it. Used it in my recent webinar, that you can turn your fear of missing out, your FOMO, into joy of missing out, JOMO, and really just celebrating how far you've come, or celebrating your change in your thoughts, or celebrating the fact that you're making a healthy choice, celebrating that you're healing your body, nourishing your body, and really, really feel awesome about it. And it can totally flip that around. You see the sugary trifle, and rather than thinking, oh, it's not fair, I can't have any trifle, it's just like, oh, look, I actually feel amazing about the fact that I don't want any trifle. It's liberating.
Totally liberating. And, you know, I know sometimes people will think, oh, but Lucy, you don't understand. I love trifle. It's my most favourite thing in the world. Peeps, I understand. I used to be, and you, Mez, we were addicted to every sugary substance known to man. Sugar stashed everywhere around my house. And it is liberating to not have that anymore, not need it, and most of all, not want it. But I'm going to say, doesn't happen overnight, because you actually are, in all of this, when you change your thoughts, you're literally rewiring the way your brain works. And that can take a bit of time. So for people that get disappointed that they've tried it and it hasn't worked, and, you know, they say, oh, I tried changing it, but it didn't work, it's something you do have to kind of work at.
Absolutely. And if you do, like, you plan to not eat the trifle, but you end up eating the trifle, it's of the absolute most crucial importance, dear, beautiful listeners, that you are kind to yourself about this. Kindness is key. It's just key. You cannot hate yourself thin, and you cannot berate yourself well. And if you are kind to yourself about slip-ups and lapses along the way, you will get back on track so much easier, so much faster, and your whole health and weight loss journey will be so much easier, not to mention just nicer with an improved quality of life because you're being kinder to yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, lovely listeners. Well, Dr. Mary and I would love to wish you and your loved ones the very best of Christmas. And remember, whatever you decide to do, you know, you're the boss of you. Okay? You are absolutely the boss of you. There is no right or wrong. You get to choose and celebrate whatever choice you make. And just make sure that you've got your plan for follow-up.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a fabulous time.
All right, lovelies. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
So, my lovely listeners, that ends this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And I'm Dr. Mary Barson. We're from Real Life Medicine. To contact us, please visit rlmedicine.com.
And until next time, thanks for listening.